Easily. Well, hey everybody, welcome to episode number 7 of the Deadpan Diaries. And thank you for joining us. I'm in control. She's that bronze girl, and that's my younger brother Eric Vulgaris in the middle, wearing the signature black tank top. This could have been dangerous. On some of these other days, we would be matching exactly. And then I'd be worried that we're just two white guys on a podcast again. And we're like It's one of the funniest jokes I've ever heard in my life. It's like, what do you call four white guys talking? And someone said it's a podcast. Oh, it was pretty funny. But we're not, because we got that bronze girl, and she's a Puerto Rican boy. So we're...
It's true. It's true. I'm the most beautiful twink boy.
Yes. Well, hey, how are you guys doing? Bronze, what are you up to? What have you been doing?
I'm doing really well. Like, I had kind of a rough day today. It just happens sometimes, if I'm being honest. But like
a mental bad day?
Yeah. But I'm like super sore from yesterday, and that's always a good day, you know?
Yep.
Like, I did really well on all my lifts yesterday, and I'm like extra sore, and that's always a good feeling. Because even when I have a bad day, I get to kind of be like,
yeah, I'm still progressing. I did something. I'm improving.
Mm-hmm.
Which is especially weird now that I know that when you work out, you're like in a weird Zen state that's like slathering yourself in pain and you enjoy it. So it's kind of
right.
Conjures up weird mental
yesterday.
Yeah. God, I didn't enjoy it yesterday. So good.
Yesterday I did Bulgarian split squats. It was like all the shit I hate.
What is a Bulgarian split squat?
It's like a lunge, except you put your back foot up on a bench.
Oh.
And you dip, yeah.
So I know that. Terrible. I just didn't know that was Bulgarian.
It's horrible.
It's fucking terrible. There's nothing about it that is like pleasant. Lunges are way better, but Bulgarian split squats are really good if you're like me and you favor one leg over the other. Because then you're forced to use like your load bearing leg to do the movement. So it was terrible.
Yeah.
Did it with like 45 pounds. Did 4 sets. Cursed the entire way through. So I wasn't zen yesterday. Yesterday I was just like,
that was your metal day.
That's brutal.
Yeah, I wasn't happy. Yesterday was like a 80s, like all I listened to was like Dio and Judas Priest.
Holy diver.
I was like a rainbow in the dark. Like I just had to like get through it.
Is that a lyric, like a rainbow in the dark?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a great song. It's fantastic.
All right.
It's that good and that bad.
Well, good. Eric, first time joining us. Quick intro for people, I guess, that may not know who this handsome young man is. He's all over the D&D community. You can see him in... he is the alternate in Jesse Cox's show that Bronze and I are on, of course, which for us means he's been on probably about as much as we all have, because that's just the way those shows go. And then you're on all kinds of other stuff, Eric. So why don't you walk them through what you do and where you're from and stuff?
Sure. Thanks. Yes, I'm Jesse Cox's #1 bench warmer. First and foremost. Also, I do a lot of stuff on my own channel. I'm running several D&D games right now, as well as some like weird psycho metal Oregon Trail games. I'm mostly known for a lot of like weird indie one-shot role-playing games, like non-D&D related stuff. I have over a couple hundred episodes and different systems along on that kind of front.
Jeez.
But yeah. I love tabletop games, part-time designer, and I really like helping other people get into the hobby. So I'm really into the teaching of them and facilitating for other people and making sure, all those other cool games get spotlighted.
Yeah. Which is why we will almost certainly have you back on to talk D&D. There's so many...
Yeah.
One of the processes for this, we were like, what do we want to talk about? And Eric came with a bunch of subjects. And actually, I was like, these are all incredible. I want to do all of them. Which is my amazing hosting segue into what we're going to talk about today, which is going to be careers. And we couldn't come up with a good title for it, so Cobra actually literally took what Braun said, and I think she might have been serious, but we can never tell. And it's just choose a job you love and you'll never have to work a day in your life, which I think nobody actually believes. But the point is, there's so much to talk about with careers, and I think kind of a fun thing with this is to share our experiences, talk about what kind of got us where we did and what we learned. We're not super old people. Like I'm 72, but the rest of these guys are, Bronze is a ripe young 24, I think, and Eric just hit 28, right?
No,
what
close
if I nailed
though.
it though?
I have a little bit of a rind on this body here. I'm still 28, but a little bit not just fresh.
Are you 28?
Yeah.
Well, then I fucking nailed it. I said that, didn't I?
Yeah, but you
28?
said just turned 28.
Oh, well. Oh my god. Okay.
I'm almost 29 now. I'm over 6 months. I'm look,
I didn't look
wake
up your age.
I wake up
I
with
guessed.
back pain. I'm old. That's fine now. Okay.
I didn't guess Bronze. I was being complimentary. Bronze, you are 27 or 28 as well, right?
I'm 30.
Fuck.
Well, I'm turning 30 in like 60 days,
That's
but
like
yeah.
okay. Well, I was off by a year or two. I'm really impressed with myself
Mhm.
right now. I think I nailed that.
Mhm.
Anyways, the point I'm trying to make is there's going to be people older than us in the chat or in the comments or whatever. The point is not that we know everything and we're going to bestow upon you guys answers. It's just more of a like, I think it's interesting to talk about what kind of got you there, why, and maybe some experience in what you learned. Also, I think we all do kind of different things. I didn't actually ask Eric to prompt this, but he works for Roll20. It's either your part job or full job, or I don't know. We'll get there, I guess. But that's interesting as well, because that means you get to work remote and work mostly for a website. They probably have an office, though, right? They have something?
No.
They don't even have an
100%
office?
remote. 100% remote.
Wow. That's
yeah.
really cool. Well, that's the new world we live in. So I think that's the conversation we have. And I think to start things off, let's just, this is a 3-person show, so we'll have to break it up into little segments. But let's just start with like what your career path has been, what you do. And then we can go from there unless you guys have better ideas. Is that a good place to start?
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
I actually kind of liked like Eric's pitch, which was more like dream jobs or lack thereof. And I wanted to like ask him about it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we can start with that too. I mean, we're definitely going to talk
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
Let's start a little bit more abstract. So, Eric, what did you mean by that? What were you thinking?
Is there? I mean, let's discuss the. Is there an actual dream job for an individual? Like, does that exist for you? Does it exist permanently? Does it even change over time?
I would even say, and what's kind of weird about this for me is like, what is the value in a dream job? So like, because I often find people talk about a dream job in the context of they happened into it or it was offered to them, and even then, to your point, is that even a dream job? Because I don't think you hunt a dream job, right? Like it's hard to do that. Some people would be like, they grow up, they're like, I want to be an astronaut. That's a tough one to set out to do. And even then, is that the actual dream job? Because you could just actually get locked into a chamber and burned to death.
Yeah,
that's pretty tough to call a dream job.
What about you, Bronze?
It's weird because I had this conversation on my stream a few days ago, but in relation to college, where I said that I don't feel like you should go to college straight out of high school because you have this like very idealized notion of what your dream job is, right? Like, but you've never actually worked a day in that job. And I know people who hold like 4-year and 6-year degrees and don't like their job, but they've now spent 4 years investing in it, which that's a fucking existential crisis waiting to happen. That's half the reason people go through midlife crises.
Yep.
Yeah, I have a hard time blaming them for that fault. Like, it's kind of like horrendous that you can saddle someone with like $80,000 of debt when like they've never paid a single rent bill in their life or like anything
scary.
or
Yeah.
looked at a spreadsheet.
Or if they're even gonna like that job, like on paper, sure, this job sounds cool, but like until you go and work it, you actually have no idea what that job is going to entail, right?
Right, 100%.
So to me, like the concept of a dream job was always terrifying. You know, like I was one of those people that, like when I was going to college and stuff, I eventually had to drop out, and the reason why was because I didn't qualify for financial aid, and I was working on my chemical engineering degree. I was about to start my 2nd year. And when I looked at the amount in private loans that was going to stack on to the 20 grand I had already accumulated, I basically had a panic attack.
Yeah. It's horrifying.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what if and then at the same time, like one of the things I was looking into is potentially working at like this paper plant, because it's where a lot of chemical engineers end up working. And around the same time, like this paper mill laid off a bunch of people. Boeing was talking about moving out of Seattle. I just had like this entire existential crisis where people were like, well, you're going to find work as a chemical engineer. Da, da, da. And then around the same time, I was having this whole thing of like, well, what if I don't like it?
Yeah.
And I decided to take a couple of years off and just work and pay my bills and pay down the loans I had already accumulated. And as I was doing that, it kind of turned into what I'm doing now, which was never the plan ever, as something I did for fun on the side. But I think that's why, so it's obviously like, that's why I think I talk about it so much, is because I was like 19 or 20 when I was just like, I've spent years and tens of thousands of dollars on a career, and I'm not even sure I want to do that career. In fact, I'm not even sure what the day-to-day life in that career is like. And that was the truth of it. Like I really because one of my friends asked me, they're like, well, like, you know, what makes you want to go towards this major and da 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 da. And I was like, well, I like the subject material, right? Because that's what you're taught in school is like, well, do you like studying this thing? But that's not the same as doing a career in that thing, right? You're shaking your head emphatically, so I want to hear your take on it.
No, it's definitely not. It's almost like it depends how many, like, can you even name a single piece of like movie or book that has like, you know, a chemical engineer in it? Like even an idea, like it's never represented anywhere. So you don't even have like a false idealized version of what this is, right? Like imagine sort of you know, like when you think of like a programmer growing up, like you think of like office space and cubicles, you know, and like I'm like, fuck that, I'm never working that ever, you know, that kind of thing. Or like, so like that's like a negative like reinforcement from media and things like that. But like a positive one, I think people show doctors in a way different way. So like what a day in a life would be. But man, even as a chemical engineer, no, like, yeah, you have no basis for anything. Yeah, like for me, for my own experience, I didn't know what I wanted to do leaving college. I knew like I wasn't going to someone be like, I'm not good at anything. I knew I was very good at like math and computer science and stuff, but I knew I didn't want to be a programmer and do those things. I actually had to go to a counselor and like ask them what they were thinking, you know, based on what I said. Did we ever do that? Did anyone else ever have to do that? Ever like talking, you know, well, kid, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Kind of thing, right? They put me down a path of being an actuary, which I never even heard of.
What?
Yeah, an actuary, because it's like one of the most well-paid jobs you could ever have. It's kind of like being not quite a lawyer. It's kind of like being a statistician or statistician, as other people call it, but a statistician, but only for like insurance companies. Basically, you're the person who determines how much money an insurance company holds in reserve versus like paying off and setting rates and that kind of stuff, like all that kind of thing. It's kind of like being like an insurance accountant slash statistician, and it's. I know you probably will all just like roll your eyes and wanted to die because that's about how much that job is like. That's why it's so well paid. It's also a huge amount of risk on you, right? Entire companies will collapse based on what you say, and it's just boring. It's just really heavy stuff, right? But I had no idea what it was. Like growing into it, I was like, sure, it lets me use math and means I'm not going to be in a cubicle, so that's going to be great.
I was actually attracted to jobs like that at first. Like after I stopped going to college, one of the first jobs I had was I was a trading assistant, and it's because I wanted to trade stock in international markets, because like it's the same thing. You assess risk, and I worked at a hedge fund, so you do a lot of like short selling and things like that you do high risk trading and stuff like that. So I was studying that at the time. But what attracted me to that field was it was almost like you're an apprentice. Like I didn't have a degree in business, and I was literally learning directly from people who made millions on the stock market. So it was like that was very appealing to me after wasting so much money on school to like immediately. And what the best part was, in our office, all of our unpaid interns were people with masters and business degrees. But I got paid, and I was a trading assistant.
Jeez.
I think even the discussion around like how you evaluate what job you want to do is really, really interesting, because I think as young people, we're like encouraged to imagine the entire world as a open oyster, like, you know, whatever it is you want, you should go after that. And I think that to a certain degree is true, but I think it's almost an interesting funnel that we end up going through, right? Like the meat grinder, because the further and further you get up the tree, and you kind of find, ooh, just what you want to do isn't necessarily enough, especially in the various different job markets we've experienced, right? Where like 2008, 2009, the economy was in the tank, and it wasn't about finding the dream job and doing exactly what you want. It was about surviving. It was about like just making sure you're
Yeah.
paying the bills. I went to school, and half my classes had 5 or 6 people reinventing themselves because of just shit that was going down in the Oregon economy in the Northwest. Like they were people that had done a job for 20 years but went back to college because that job decided they're either too old, too high to keep on or whatever, and instead of just like completely resetting, they had to go reinvent themselves, and that was harrowing. They were some of the most serious students I've ever seen in my life, but we're all having fun and showing up hungover, and they're like, I've got, I'm going to night school after this too, because I'm actually not betting on one career path. I'm betting on two, so that I can have a
Yeah.
career. And it's just a weird dichotomy because again, and I love that you brought this up, Eric. But you're talking about like what is, like even through media, but certainly through our family and tradition. At least as an American, I can't speak for everybody, obviously, but we were kind of raised up to believe in like these heroic jobs and the nuclear family and you have life after work, and I think what's kind of funny too for me, this is what I experienced. My dad and mom kind of came from that, right? They believed it so much that they actually made that happen, but also that was like a golden era of sorts, the baby boomers and all that, where you could do that kind of thing. There was a stay-at-home mom, or I would say dad, but that's 2019. That's what happened, guys. Sorry, back then it didn't. And it was like, it's funny because we were held to that lens, right? Like I went to school and I graduated in like 6 years, I think it was, and my dad and mom, or my dad more so, just couldn't understand that. They're like, "What the hell? We did it in 4. We came out without debt," and I'm like, "Yeah, the times are really different." And it even
Mhm.
reflects things like moving in with your significant other, right? Like our parents, for the most part, came from generations where you just did not do that because it was kind of looked
Mhm.
down upon and scandalous. But now there's obviously good reasons to do it, but there's also the reason of just you don't want to pay 2 rents. You don't. You're almost never home because you're both at work or out doing stuff work related and hanging out after work and going to the gym before work, and like it's kind of crazy how the entire mental shift goes around. And that's why I think the discussion around work is really interesting too, because I think it's almost worth talking. I mean, it is worth talking about revisiting the idea of a dream job. I think it's a huge honor, and I'm so lucky to like what I do for work. That's not to say it's perfect and flawless and there is no stress. That's incredibly not true. But I think it's interesting because I think a lot of people crush themselves if they don't super love their job, but they don't cut themselves the slack of also like not everyone gets to do that, and it's not that that's okay. It's that it might just be where you're at right now, and that's not the talk that's thrown around, right? People don't say that. What do you guys think about that?
Sure. I'll pick it up first.
Mhm.
Yeah. So like, when it comes to for me and like the concept of a dream job, yeah, I like that you brought up it has different sorts of criteria
Mm-hmm.
based on where you are and understanding. I think the older you get, the more just experience you have of maybe not necessarily what you want, but no, you don't want because you sought after it and realized, oh, that's actually not what I want.
Yeah.
Right. So when it comes to for me, and when I think about a dream job, it's like stability and peace of mind. And I'm privileged enough to know that this wasn't as big of a deal for me, but like, oh my God, if you had healthcare, like actual healthcare, that just could be a dream job. Like being
Mm-hmm.
able to say like I can get my diabetes medicine or whatever, without dying. That's and especially here in America. So like that's a big deal for a dream job. That alone, doesn't matter what the actual contents are, right?
Redefining what it means. Yeah, I like that.
Right. It could be moving to the city that you want to be in, and rather than just for fun. It could totally mean many different things, or actually doing work, like in a certain type of skill, or maybe working with certain people.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Which is funny, right? Because we're definitely scaling back, and I can hear the beep beeps coming off of our truck. But I think it's this goes with so many of our other episodes where I think it's so important to evaluate where you're at with these kind of things in a very introspective way. Like, are you? I know a guy whose job growing up, his job was literally what was one of the main. Do you guys ski? Do you do snow skiing at all?
Yeah.
What's
Like
that
I've been.
what's the big company that makes skis? Just name a couple. I'm blanking on it.
Burton snowboards, but they probably do skis
Not
too.
Burton. Anyways, it's not important.
Top Line, Tree Master. I don't know. Like it sounds
Tree
something like
Master. That's a
Master.
terrible name.
Alpine thing. I don't
Leave
know.
your D&D shit out of this for 1 minute, okay?
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. Anyways, his job was literally they flew him to the best ski places on the planet Earth, and he would ski their brand new prototypical skis.
Castle?
Not Castle.
Rossignol?
Gonna say it. Nope, no, the chat's gonna say it. We're all nerds. Anyways, like I said, it's just one of the biggest ski companies. They're amazing, and that was his job. Like he just had to do it twice a month, and he made this is like 20 at K2. Thank you, Matt. Yeah, that's exactly right. K2.
Damn, okay.
So he would get paid, he'd make like 6 figures or whatever it was. And this is like 15, 20 years ago that I knew about this. Maybe his job's changed now. That was as close as I could think of to like a dream job. But I love everything Eric just said too, because I know people who will tell you work is work, right? There's certain people who are just never going to be happy and super fulfilled by going to work and having someone tell you what you have to do and kind of following. A lot of jobs are like, it's not autonomous. You just have to do a task, right? But if that does allow you to pay the bills, they have great benefits, or they have good enough benefits, or you like the people you're working with, or it gets you out of the place and you're around positive people. Or what if you just meet some of your best friends or your significant other and end up marrying that person or something like that? Like that's all, in my mind, that can qualify as a good, healthy workplace.
So, Jeff, there's one thing also that there's something that's underpinning all of this discussion, and that is you as a person are only valuable based on producing things and being paid for it. Part of your identity, when you meet someone, you're like, what do you do? Right? What's your name? What do you do? Like that is your identity as a human being, your value, and like judgments are made off of what you do. Which is kind of weird because you're like, I don't know, I'm a person. You don't say, well, I'm an award-winning, Warhammer tournament master. You can't really do that part. Like, even though you want to start with that, it's the question. What are you existentially super hyped about? Isn't necessarily, that's not the second question someone asks you. It's what do you do? And that is that underpinning to everything that goes on. And so you have to have value from these jobs. Like you have to feel good. Like your worth comes from your job.
And that's where I think it's so important for people to be aware of as well, because like this is all not to say that you can't work a job that you absolutely hate, and then that too is not something that you need to look at and evaluate as well, right? Like the harsh truth is there is situations where you do have to work a job and like maybe you hate it, but like what it provides is so important at that time that you're kind of locked in, right? Like I know people that are their significant other lost their job, so they are the bread earner, they are the person that pays the bills. You can't and a lot of those times you can't be like, well, I'm gonna go on the job hunt as well. Like that would be uniquely the worst time ever, right? But I don't know. We talked about this in another episode, but I also think it's so important to not compress yourself into a hole and say, well, I'm stuck here forever. Maybe you just have to be there for a while.
Yeah. Especially if you hate your job, and transitioning to a job that you like better might result in a temporary pay cut. Sometimes it's worth it if it means that you're going to feel better about it later. It's just weird because like when I was young and life was like, oh, we'll pick a career that, you're going to love and there was no talk of like compromise back then. And now there is, So one thing that has always kind of strange to me is like, there's so many people that are like, oh, I want to be a full-time content creator. And then there's me, and I'm actually jealous of other people. Like the reason why is because like there's people that create content that don't like, they don't like, there's people that write skits and stuff and like, create all this stuff, and they get to like go on vacation and take days off, and they don't think about work all the time. And they're, it's not a one woman show. And I've been in situations like that. Like doing relics and rarities was one of the greatest experiences of my life. And I remember coming back and saying like, you guys are lucky I don't get jobs like that all the time, because I would quit like in a heartbeat. Like it, steady pay and being able to go and do the things I love, like play D&D, have it. And I love structure. So I love having things like a 6 a.m. call time, 4 p.m. wrap, and like knowing how my day is going to go, knowing what's expected of me, and then being able to create the content and let it go. Like, because in terms of how many viewers it gets, in terms of marketing it, in terms of editing it, that's not my job. There's an editor, there's a director, there's a marketing manager. Like to me, I get to focus on my favorite part of it. I think coming into it, I wouldn't have been willing to make that compromise, because the trade-off is loss of control, right? Like maybe, I wish we would not do just D&D 5th edition. I really wish we did like a sci-fi or Stars Without Number campaign. No, like you don't have any creative control over what you're doing. You don't own what you make, like if I ever want to have that on my channel, or I don't own that, it belongs to Geek and Sundry. Like there is a huge trade-off. But for me, that compromise was worth it, And I think that when I first started out looking at jobs and going to college and stuff, that concept was not there. It was just like, oh, well, I want to have this, 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 and this, and I'm going to own my own business. And then I worked for a small business, and how miserable that dude was really clicked in with me, because if there was a bad day, like we just had bad business one day at work, I got to clock out and go home and be fine. He was worried for the rest of the night because he was over here like, my store is going to fail, my business is going to fail. And that really was kind of like a huge eye opener to me of like, oh, well, yes, when you own your own business, you are your own boss, you're your own this, you're probably the richest person who works there. But I think it's like, is it worth it to you to be the person that's also on call, to be the person that has to think about this all the time, who has to worry about this all the time? You can't pick up and move if you get a cool deal on a house or something, or on a whim, like you are tied down. And all of those things really changed my outlook on that, because up until that point, I think my goal was to own a business and retire, And it's because Eric was saying, those idealized views. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to own a bookstore, and it's going to be perfect. It's going to be this, it's going to be that. I'm like, yeah, until we have a month of terrible business. And then I'm going to be the most miserable person in the world.
Yep. Oh, yeah. It's so wild.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the adage that comes to my mind is the grass is always greener on the other side, right? Like I don't know if you guys get this, but I get it all the time that I'm so lucky and so fortunate to be doing what I'm doing, and I am, and I really am. And I think the other part of this too, though, is that this is like putting a bow on the dream job comparison. I think when people look at streaming and what I do for a living and that kind of thing, they think of travel, they think of just talking and being in front of a camera and just like people throwing money at me, and that's just all I do. Not going to turn this into a sob hour, obviously, of how hard I work. It's not pouring concrete in a demilitarized zone in Africa or something like that. Like, I'm not about to sit here and tell you it's the hardest job in the world. It's not, and I am very lucky. But I think what's so interesting is mentally mastering what it is you do and working your way around it. I love talking. I love public speaking. I love educating. I love entertaining. So I was actually going to school to be a teacher because that's what I thought was like one of the best ways to get those juices flowing and have that be a part of what I want to do. Teachers don't make shit. I'm not talking about like being a professor at a university and like I wasn't talking about a career where I could find myself in a spot where it's easy and I'm rich. Nope. I didn't care about the money. I wanted to do what I felt was gonna like make me feel fulfilled every day and make me feel like I'm contributing. And this whole thing just swept me away. And what I like is in the back of my mind is I still could go teach, and I still could do that. And that's one of the pieces of mind that I have. But I also have discovered and learned, and this is what's kind of fun about this talk too. I didn't know this was important to me, but the entrepreneurial spirit is really something that I found I'm really drawn to. When we start up a new show and Matt's producing and I'm doing it with my buddy Dan or Bronze and some of these people, and we're creating content, I really enjoy the life that project takes on and how people will be like, you are the creator, you have produced this thing, and that it's got a weird spark inside of me that's like, you're doing something you were meant to do. That's good,
Yeah, I get that too.
Yeah, so
I get that too.
So it's kind of interesting because that groundwork was laid out through work. I didn't know that through school. I turned in projects, but I was like, I did this last night and I don't give a shit. So I didn't get the same feeling. And it's okay if you do, by the way. This is what's so interesting about this. I think it's the personal journey for everybody. And then I've been chasing that. So since that, now I want to make more content. Now I want to create shows, and I want to have graphics, and I want to bring on talented people that have different abilities to make that thing better and to work with them. And does that create the dream job? It's like, it is for me. It's creating it for me because that's what, when I wake up and I'm like, shit, we had a good show. There's a comment that someone's like, one of the most impactful things someone's ever said to me years ago when I was on State of the Game with JP motherfucking McDaniels. This guy wrote me this story about how he and his family sat on their roof in Australia as a flood was taking everything away from them. They were waiting for a helicopter to evac them out, and all they could do was on their phone they had State of the Game, and they listened to old episodes, and it got them through it. And obviously, I'm not about to be a New York firefighter here or something like that, but I'm just telling you, to hear your content helped somebody through a hard time, I was like, well, I'm hooked. That's what I'm going to do for the rest of my life then, I guess. And I discovered that through work. That was interesting.
That's super powerful.
That is awesome. I think I don't think about that enough. I think I like focus so much on like other stuff that I never stop and think about like, oh, I probably made somebody's day better. And sometimes I have humbling moments where I'll be like, wow, like 452 people wished me a happy birthday. Like 10 years ago, maybe 4 people did, maybe. And so it's like crazy to stop and think about that.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna lie, I get a rush when like I make something new. Even when it gets old, I still get like a rush. Like it's like every week on Deadpan Diaries, it's like a miniature like endorphin rush. And I don't get that all the time when I like hit start stream. It only happens like when I'm like really making curated content, which is kind of the direction I've been taking my channel, is like having shows that I do research for and then making that come true and like filling this void in the internet with like this really specific thing. And it's weird. It's like this, like, it makes everything else worth it, which is why I wish I could take the negative part of it and put it in somebody else's hands. Cause I'm not going to lie. I'm not a perfect person. If I make something great and it doesn't get like the numbers I think it should, I'm crushed.
Yeah.
Every time.
Well, I think that's normal.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, it turns into rage and into like, sometimes jealousy, like, but this thing was garbage and people fucking ate that shit up, and it's like, I just love, that's why I said I love working with other studios. Cause then I get to get some of the good parts of like what we do, but not have to worry about like, I put 46 hours of work into this and nobody watched it. Cause that is like, it's painful. It's almost not worth it at that point.
This is the life of every single artist who has ever lived.
Yeah.
Someone stands in front of your painting and it's like, oh my God, that horse's face is amazing. How long did it take you to do that? And the artist has, with a straight face, has to go, I mean, this whole painting took 6 months. And really that horse's face was 2 minutes. No one has ever mentioned the little shrub on the right-hand side there with how the lighting is on it. That took me 2 weeks. Like no one cares about that. No one sees how much work goes into that part. They only see like the final product. So yeah, especially when it comes to stream shows. Oh my God, like organizing anything involving more than one person, in terms of scheduling, emails, coordinating, like just putting on the Deadpan Diaries. Jeff, like, do you want to walk us through a little bit of like the process of like all of the production, the mise en place, so to speak, of like getting everything ready to do this?
Yeah, I mean,
and then afterwards, and the things after each episode.
Well, that's what's so incredible about it too. Is like I am enabled by people I've found around me. So to tell you about the production of Deadpan Diaries, I have to tell you what even makes this possible. Like just streaming for a while, you meet these really talented and amazing people, and they are also entertained or whatever. They're just drawn to wanting to do more, and that's where Cobra Venom steps in. So I can't even remember. Unfortunately, when I made him a mod, he was just always around great guys. I'm like, yeah, you're a mod now. And then after some time, like, how the fuck did I even get? Oh, you know what it is? Literally through modding, he just like offered to help. He answered tech questions. He was doing stuff, and so eventually it got to a place where I was like, well, we're gonna make this show, the Pylon Show, with Artosis, and we're idiots. We can't do that. We need someone with like blue collar. Because Cobra's not even like a savant. I'm not about to sit here and say he just knows all the answers. This is like, he's a Google wizard who has life experience, who does do IT stuff, and has some knowledge and experience. But for the most part, he powers through stuff. Like he helped the worst story that we should never tell ever is the tale of how he fixed my audio, or tried to, for like an entire year. Oh my god, digitally through my, or remotely through my computer. It's a horror story for him. You know, I would go to sleep and wake up and he's still working. I'm like, Matt, what are you doing? But I guess it's a long-winded way of saying that this show was even possible because I have someone in my corner like Matt, where I was like, I can't produce it. I could not. I want to take that workload off, and we're supposed to at some point. But like, there is a lot that goes into this, and I need talented and hardworking people around me to even make the content. So the Pilot Show is ridiculous production. That's actually a whole team of people. This one is just Matt every day taking time out of his day to make sure this gets up off the ground. And I wanted it to be as simple as possible. What's so funny is any show that you do, even the most simplest ones, are obviously a big ass pain in the ass. They're so stupid, the things that can happen. And if you don't know how to move a webcam around because someone accidentally closed theirs down or something like that, the whole show could be like broken up. And the chat will be like, well, I'm not paying attention at all because all I'm doing is, your window, your picture is messed up. You know, they're just typing and you're like, it can be really frustrating. So that's a long, convoluted way of answering your question. But the point is, my job, my ability to do content is only possible because I met people that are willing to help me with that and believe in the content and stuff. And that's been true the entire time. Evil Geniuses as an organization hired me and paid me. And I was a mediocre StarCraft 2 player, but I was a fantastic talking head. So my career just went that direction. But go back then and imagine if Evil Genius was like, you're not winning every MLG, you're cut. You're out of here. But they saw value in being an advertiser and entertainer, and they enabled me to do that. And that's the story of my entire life and my career. And that's kind of where I wanted, not to sidetrack too much, but like, that's the big, I think, hope in this talk for people. If right now you're like, well, I go to work and I'm an accountant, but I went to school to be a scientist, so this sucks. Please don't. You don't have to do that forever. But so much of what I found out about myself, I found out doing other things, and then I tried to work my way into the direction of what I wanted to do. And I'm still doing that to this day. I don't envision myself being a 65-year-old guy still losing an XCOM on stream, right? Like, someday I want to have 7 shows that I'm lined up on. I want to be consulting for GW as they take over the world. I want to fly around and do speaking tours. It's one of the most fun thing I've ever done in my life, was be a part of a speaking tour on behalf of Intel. There's so much to do, and it evolved from not knowing what I wanted to do.
Yeah. It's actually kind of like, I feel like for a lot of people in our field, that's kind of how it started. And I think like, I'm almost jealous that you have an idea of where you want it to go. Cause for me, I don't care what job I did. For me, it was always about moving up. And I think with this one, that's the weird part, is that growth is not always guaranteed. And also that I don't know where to move up from here, you know? And I think like I have some vague ideas of what that would look like, you know? And people always, I get people talking to me on set all the time. They're like, who's your agent? Do you do like radio? You know, like, and I'm just like, that's terrifying. Like, doing radio is terrifying. But it's something like that is now on my radar, because it's one of those things that's like, maybe that's the next step. Maybe that's like the next thing, because I don't really know what the next thing is.
I think it's so intrinsic for me too. This discussion is nurture versus nature as well. Like, how you're raised to value work is such a big deal. My dad is a super hardworking but very talented, like, natural businessman, and that inspired. Like, my sister does sales, my brother does sales. He sells designer bongs, which is actually kind of cool and interesting, up in your guys' neck of the woods. But I didn't take sales, but I took the speaking part of that. But it was so important to my parents that I did whatever I wanted. I was always raised that way. Like if I was like, I wanted to be an entomologist growing up. I wanted to study insects and bugs. They were all about that. So they took me to scientists all over. Like, there was a guy in Seattle who is like a specialist on arachnids, and his office was a abandoned bathroom, and in each stall he had a different display of spiders in there that he was studying. Weird shit, right? But that's what I saw.
That's kind of cool.
It is cool, but also really weird. And he's a spider guy, of course, too. And it's like dark in there, and there's literally like a hand-sized dead spider displayed on the stall of this bathroom. It's no longer a bathroom. But I was really lucky. My parents did not pressure me into doing things when I got a bad grade or didn't like something. They didn't be like, "You're gonna be a failure." They're just like, "Well, let's figure out what you want to do." So that's the mentality I have now. Like I think to myself, like I'm not employed by a company that's offering a 401k or something like that. Like if I got crippled right now, Barrison would have to take care of me. He's a fucking bulldog, so I don't think he could do it. So I have things I could be worried about, but I was just kind of raised to be confident, and if I'm happy in doing what I want, then it'll work its way, it'll work itself out, and of course be responsible. So it's just a different take, I think, on that.
Yeah, mine's the flip. Mine's the total flip.
Mm.
Like any dream I had, my parents like convinced me that it wasn't like a good idea. You know, because I remember being like, I want to write. My parents are like, And I was like, what? And they're like, that's probably never going to happen for you. And it's when I was like 7, they told me that. My parents are like, that's a hobby, not a job. Like they legitimately told me that. And I've been paid for writing now, by the way. One of my best paying gigs last year was for writing a campaign for a company. So like, I'm just like, I kind of like laugh at them now because they had me convinced that there was only one. And I guess this loops back into the whole like not knowing what a career entails. Like, and life changes at breakneck speed. Like to me, it's like, oh, well, writing is writing a book and selling that book and hoping it gets published. But like writing comes in a lot of different ways, shapes, and forms. They need writers for everything. They need writers for in-flight magazines. They need writers for Dungeons and Dragons and for campaigns. People are making their own like, add-ons and modules and selling those. Like they need writers for everything. Anything that you're reading, whether it's the back of a shampoo bottle, has been written by someone. But my parents had me convinced when I was young that we're just like, that's not a job, that's a hobby. And it was like that with everything. And my dad is like, yeah, no, that's nice. But like that's a backup plan. You got to have a solid plan. So now that if he knew like how unstable my career was, he'd probably have a heart attack and be like, what are you doing? Finish your degree. Have a solid plan. Your whole channel could tank and all your subs could leave tomorrow. What are you doing? And I'm like, so my brain is always in that mode of like, this could all implode tomorrow. Twitch could ban me tomorrow.
Yeah.
What would I do?
Bronze, that echoes my experience, especially just the single just
What is it, Dad? You're like, yeah. I'll be a musician, dude.
No, you're not doing that one. No, I was the first person in my immediate family to go to college. So they didn't really know what to do with me, except like, you're doing this, you're going to spend a lot of money to get something that's guaranteed a job, especially because this was 2008, 2009, right? Like the financial crisis time. They're like, nope, you need something solid. The world is ending, Eric.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was a wild time.
And you know what? It's funny because they're not wrong as well. Like that is the safest bet to encourage someone to not, because they're like streaming, which is, I've given this speech a million times, but like the people that set out to stream, it's more possible now than ever before. But back in my day on Justin TV and stuff, like, and still to this day, the failure rate is through the roof. Like you can put as much time as you want into it, and you won't make enough money to live. And you'll get, if you're not careful to guard your mentality, you'll get resentful, you'll get hateful, because it isn't, to a certain degree, you're an artist, you're putting out content, you're putting out things, and if people aren't paying attention, like Braun said, that voice will creep into your head where you're like, look, this guy over here licked a cat's butthole, and there were 7,000 people that watched that shit, and I am fucking doing slam poetry, and I'm not, where's the
I can
people?
talk about this.
Yeah.
I can talk about this all the time. Right. There were like so not to tell you the whole life story of everything that I do and stuff like that. Like there was a time when I was like, you know what, maybe I should try to do it as a full-time content creator and doing D&D streams and, these people and doing that kind of stuff. Like I only did it for a few months, but like the amount of work that goes into like each individual stream and compared to turnout and production, like Matt does a stellar job for the Deadpan Diaries. And I'm sure everything that Matt does like is exactly like looking at the stream, like if there was just a little window with Roll20 dice box and it's basically D&D, right? Yeah. So like I'm sure everything that you do, including downloading, putting into a podcast, uploading to an RSS feed, all that kind of stuff too, like that whole, like the entire workflow process to make this podcast working is what you're doing maybe like twice or 3 times a day as like a D&D creation, right? So you're doing like 15 shows a week doing that. So you're playing D&D all those times, so it sounds super fun, but you don't see all of the work in the back end. ever.
Yep.
And even as a streamer, I don't think it's so far. So I don't stream as much as I used to. I'm obviously not a full-time content creator, so it's kind of weird for me to want to say this, but I think it's not unreasonable to say that maybe an audience, someone in chat, only sees you like in front of a camera is probably about 40% of the work. Like most of it is all of the back end writing emails, scheduling, getting new commissions, uploading your art, getting everything set up, planning out content, like all that kind of stuff. Right?
No, you're not wrong.
Social media.
That's the thing too about for a lot of people that are actually just straight up. I mean, and like you just described, if you're running D&D shows, you are as well. But like, there's a personal Facebook page. There is a forum we're building. There's like, I have to be on social media constantly and kind of doing that kind of stuff. And when I'm not doing that, I'm literally kicking in doors of esports companies to pay me for a gig that I did 3 or 4 months ago. And if you don't remind them, they just simply, they're like, "Huh, did that not go out?" And I'm like, "No, it did not." And they're like, "Oh, well." There's a lot that goes into it. But actually, what's kind of funny for me is that the hardest part about the job is that I'm actually a pretty introverted guy. But when I stream, and I sometimes, especially in like an XCOM binge, I'll stream like 12 hours in a day. And at the end, I'll be like, holy shit, my jaw hurts. And I'm like, what's this soul crushing feeling I have where I want to crawl into a hole and never come out of it? Oh, I've been talking to people all day. And most of that's super amazingly pleasant. But then there'll just be that one person who's like, how come you're not, why is your dog dumb? And I'll be like, oh, well.
Yeah, I am the same. Remember how I said today, like I was having like a rough day?
Mm-hmm.
It's like there's some days where I'm so good at it, and I just don't have the international required trait to be a streamer of putting up with bullshit. I do not put up with fuck shit at all. And so when somebody says or does something that's just so fucking dumb, like it gets to me, like, or just like, you just,
Don't
it throws off my whole vibe.
Also, don't be a streamer if you like really, really hate repeating yourself, because everyone's going to be asking you, what mods do you use in XCOM for eternity? All right, or whatever. Just the same questions you've been, people ask you day one constantly, because it's the new people that just come in, they ask the same question over and over and over and over and over and over and over, and over again. It's wild.
Well, let's kind of let's dovetail the tail end of this conversation into the applicable territory. I think we talked about. I liked our open-ended discussion on kind of the dream jobs. Do they exist? And we kind of talked a little bit about like what goes into it for us, and whether or not we think it exists. Obviously, there's no answer to that, but I like that there is no answer to that. I thought the talk was good there. Let's talk a little bit, if you guys are cool with this, a little bit about kind of what got us to where we're at, and let's just openly evaluate our jobs a little bit closer and talk about what we like or don't like about it and where we want to go, because that's the other part of this. And we all touched on this a little bit. It's very it's resounding in my head with what Bronze was saying too, about how if she could, she'd quit right now. I think that's an interesting place to explore with work. So let's start there, Bronze. Like, how did you get to where you are? You talked about working at a hedge fund. I know you've worked elsewhere as well. How did this happen?
Yeah, I did. I worked at a game store where I managed it, and I worked on I would like control like what product we carried at the store. So I worked with wholesalers and stuff like that. I worked a lot of different jobs. Worked in elderly care for a while, great job. And then there was a point in time that I was working 2 jobs, and I was streaming on Twitch, but I was pretty, in my opinion, I was very like relaxed about it. I had a clear idea of like which of my shows I wanted to be popular, but I didn't really care if my stream was popular, if that makes sense. Because at the time I did this weekly comic book show and a couple of D&D shows, and I was more invested in those taking off than I was in like my overall channel taking off. And I didn't stream like long hours. I would only stream like for 3 or 4 hours at a time, but I was incredibly consistent. So I would work, 2 jobs, and then I would turn around and stream on top of that. And I got this opportunity at the studio called Hyper RPG, where they were like, well, can you come host our comic book show? And the concept of that being a thing had never occurred to me, that like, oh, a company might have money and a set and, camera people, and then be like, hey, we want you to come do this for us. Like, I always thought that the type of people who do those things would want to sit in front of the camera themselves, like And so I took the job and I started doing like more RPG and comic book stuff there. And essentially like it got away from me. Like I was burning the candle at both ends,
Yeah.
and I did that for about a year. And I was partnered and everything, and people were like, when are you gonna go full time? When are you gonna go full time? And I was like, never, never. It's so dumb. But between getting the weekly gigs, because at one point in time I was working 3 days a week at the studio and then like working on my other job on top of that. I quit one of my jobs first. It was just too much. So
Well, you
I
had
went
two
full time.
jobs and you were hosting?
Yeah.
Holy
Yeah.
shit.
I busted my ass to get here. When I started streaming, I didn't have like a PayPal. I didn't anything. People would be like, "What if we want to help you out?" I'd be like, save your money and buy yourself something good tomorrow. Because I was doing it like from this very, I don't want to say like I'm better than people. I was doing it from a very noble place of like, I don't see like, to to, to be quite frank, like I used to get annoyed because I would be scrolling through Twitch. And it felt like all of the most prominent dudes were normal, but all the most prominent girls were like what they call e-girls,
Hmm.
And there were some normal women out there, but I felt like the ones who were always at the top of the directory were the clickbaity ones, especially when I started like 3 or 4 years ago. And so I was like, I need to equalize that quotient. That was literally it. I was just like, I just
Yeah.
need to equalize that quotient. Like, I need for there to be like just a couple of more normal women in every category, and not like the ones with the camera that's this big and then the game is that big, like in the corner, and they're kind of just doing squats every time they get a sub. Um, I don't knock the hustle though. It's not
Yeah.
it's not a hustle. Like if, people are always like, well, Bronze, you'd never do that. I'm like, listen, if I want to be squatting half naked, I'm doing it on a pole and I'm making bank. I'm not going to
Hmm.
spread my shame on the internet for $2.50. You're crazy. Like,
So those girls make more than that.
exactly. Anyways, so it just got away from me. Like the channel was growing so quickly and I was getting more and more gigs at Hyper RPG that it made sense to go full time. And so I did. And 4 months later, they fired me.
Hyper RPG?
Yeah. It was this whole thing. They wanted to move down to LA, and it came out like I even moved where I lived so I could be closer to the studio. And it was jarring.
Yeah.
And so then I started streaming more, and I kind of put myself into this full time. And, I have to be honest, I don't really think it took off until last year. Like I think last year was the first year that I really started getting cool opportunities, and a lot of it came from like a just like this relentless pursuit of things, because I don't squander opportunities because I don't have time to waste, like, so essentially I worked with Geek and Sundry a couple of times, and the people there really liked me. And then they brought me on for Starter Kit, and they were like, holy shit, she's amazing. And that's why they brought me on for Relics and Rarities. That's why there's a bunch of famous people on that show and then me. It's because every time I've worked with them, I've given them like every ounce of my energy and every ounce of like my passion. And
And why did you
I
do that?
didn't
Why did you, when you went in and they were initially working with you and you gave them everything, did you have it in your mind that this is what you wanted to do, or were you just competitive about wanting to make money?
It wasn't about wanting to make money. It was like almost like an infectious energy on set. Like the first time I sat down, I almost had a panic attack because it was my first time being on a real set, and there's like 30 people there and they're all staring at you. So because there's like 4 cameras and there's a person behind every camera, and there's all these like, production people there. And they, I had a teleprompter up and I was like shooting pickups, which is like next time on Starter Kit. And I was like flubbing it. It was terrible. And there was like 30 people there. And there was something inside me where I was like, I have to rise to this occasion. Like there's
Hmm.
30 people who are paid here, and they're all of us are going to come together and make this thing. And I have to hold up my end. Like I need to do the best that I can do so that this wasn't a fucking waste for everybody who's here. And I did. Cause I never thought I was a team player, but I am a team player if all the team members want it as bad as I do, if that makes sense. And
Yeah.
when you're on a set and there's like, cause it's LA, people are competitive. These are people that they take their like credits very seriously. If their name is associated with this project, they want their part of it to look the best, because it's going to dictate whether or not they get hired as a lighting guy again, whether they get hired as a sound guy again. So everybody there takes it very seriously. And I was like, I fell in love, because the Twitch side of it does not. I don't want to like shit on people, but a lot of Twitch streamers, like, let's be honest, a lot of this is luck.
Yes.
I'm not saying they don't work hard, but a lot of them, you know, maybe didn't work as hard, but so much of it is luck based that they don't have that like hunger, like where they're just hungry for it. And so when you work with a bunch of professionals who are like, they're like chasing this down with like, you know, you have this like energy. Everybody wants to come together and make the best thing that they can make. And I was just like, I want to do this forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I love about this show too. Like, we're both here. We're both very present. Our guests are the same way. I've never felt like you've showed up and phoned it in. Like, you're just like, I guess I'll go do Deadpan Diaries. Yeah, whatever. Like, you've never wasted my time when I was here. And I think like it sounds stupid, but you guys have no idea like how much that happens, where people waste your fucking time. Where you show up for an RPG and it's clear that everybody else has a second tab open and they're answering emails, and all I can do is sit there and be like, you're wasting my fucking time. Like, I could have done anything in these fucking 4 hours, and I'm sitting here watching the gleam of you reading a different monitor. So it was infectious. Being on set was infectious, because
like that.
everybody there is like, they want it.
I'm hearing similar things to what I said earlier too, which is that you kind of through this discovered that gave you that rush, and that you were drawn to that, right? Like, you were on that set and these people were that competitive, because you're not citing fellow actors and people on camera, which I'm sure were also competitive and working really hard, but you're talking about literally the crew, the people that are behind the cameras. It really mattered to them, and it mattered to you that it mattered to them, and that was what drew you to that.
Yeah, like
energy.
the director and the producers. And it's some of the hardest times I've ever worked. Like, most of the time when I'm filming something like that, I get maybe between 4 to 5 hours of sleep. And with Starter Kit, since I wrote it as well, and we had a huge technical glitch, and so we lost like 45 minutes to an hour of filming on one of the days. We only had 2 days to shoot it. I had to rewrite. I had to do rewrites. So like, we would break for 15 minutes and I'd be sitting there frantically doing rewrites, but I loved it. Like, I was so tired. I came home and just like passed out like almost immediately. But
That's cool.
it was also just like a rush where I was like sitting down with one of the other writers and being like, okay, let's cut this, let's move this here. How do we push the party through this part? And yeah, so that's how I've ended up where I am. And that's why I don't know where I want to go. Cause it's like,
well, we'll come back to that. We'll go down the line, but I do want to. I mean, maybe it's hypothetical, right? Maybe that's how we end the show, is we ask like to think about that, where we're going from that. But Eric, if you don't mind, talk about what brought you here and kind of your similar experience.
Totally. I'm so glad you brought up the things about what it's like to be on a team or with a group of people whose goals are like all aligned, like you're all going the same direction. It's incredible. Let me just say that when that happens, you know it when it happens, and it is literally the best feeling. It really, like, the together, it makes all of like the motivational posters and everything make sense. like a teamwork makes the dream work. Like, literally, it's amazing. So anyways,
it's a human thing. We're made to feel good when that happens, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. There's something like natively, like, it's like in our genetics or something about like being cooperative and like doing something, taking down a mammoth or, something like that in our DNA. I don't know. But anyways, yeah. So my, like, I've been working since I was like 15 or so, right? Like, different jobs. I started mowing lawns and things like that. But since then, my first like major job was in college when I was working full time and being a student, because my girlfriend broke up with me at the time, and I just got super into WoW. Right. And because of our school and the way
unrelated though, by the way.
No, this is yeah, unrelated. I'm not. I promise it goes to the careers. Right. My Wi-Fi sucked so bad, and so I just kept spending all of this time troubleshooting it. I would just email our network, our IT team, being like, "Hey, here's our trace routes. Here's what's going on. Here's the timing of these things. Like, I can't play my games. What can I do?" And they're like, "This is really thoroughly documented. Do you want a job?"
Really?
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And so from there, I ended up working for the IT department. I was doing that for a while, and then incidentally got a job with the government. I was doing that actuarial science thing I was mentioning before, right? I applied for an internship, and they're like, "You're actually more qualified for an IT internship," which I'm like, "Cool, whatever. I guess I'll be a programmer in my life." It's 2008. Here's a job with the government. It's like, because at this time, internships turn into full-time jobs.
Yeah.
And here it is with the government, 2008, 2009. I'm set, right? As a sophomore in college, I'm set. So I'm like, okay, cool. And it turns out to be like a project manager / business analyst kind of role. So instead of being just a programmer, I'm the person sort of like managing a project and like reporting on it and like handling stuff and basically being a dungeon master. Only the thing that you're doing isn't D&D, it's like improving a website or creating an Excel report that reports on this other thing, that kind of stuff. So that's kind of where I started going. I didn't even know this was a job, right? It just seems so like wild and weird, and like this is something that programmers like level up into, right? But this time somehow I'm doing this, and I have people who have kids my age at this time who who are reporting to me, and I'm like,
Yeah.
this isn't, this is just really weird dynamics, and I just realized that how much of the jobs were so kind of just out there and strange. But I was there. I probably would have still been there had I stayed in Philadelphia. However, I got the bug of coming out to Seattle, and honestly, my partner Suzanne, we looked at each other. We came out here to Seattle, and we're like, we want to come out here, and we're like, whichever of us gets the first job, we're going, and then the other person will support the other person until they get another job. Right? She got the job before me. I said bye there. And I did the thing that you mentioned way back at like the beginning of the show, whereas like I took the first job that I got, right? Suzanne got the first job she got, incidentally, in communications, brand management as a writer, doing stuff for like scientific publications, like
cool.
intra business, a lot of stuff or like green energy stuff, because that's what's out here. Basically trying to talk to investors and stuff about it. For me, I was working in insurance again. Only this time I was working for like unions and medical insurance. And let me tell you, that's like the pits of hell. Okay, there's a level of hell for like medical insurance, and I feel very bad for anyone having to deal with that stuff, because I was dealing with unions, medical insurance companies, and healthcare providers all together. So just layers upon layers of bureaucracy through. I saw the worst of it. So from there, but still doing the business analyst stuff, which if you don't know what it means that you're kind of like a data analyst, where like you write a lot of SQL stuff to make charts, but then you have to be able to explain those charts to people. So like communication super like important, like explaining it to people who make like 6 times your salary. Basically, the simplest idea that I want to wrap my like how to explain your job is that if you do this one thing instead of this other thing, you could save $1 million a year. Just looking at that and explaining why in charts, and you don't get any of that money. You get a salary.
Yep.
So it's very depressing work sometimes.
And you can hit it out of the park for somebody, and it doesn't actually, in a lot of cases, doesn't even show up on your anything.
Exactly. No, that's exactly it. Or it's like, oh, that's nice, Eric. Let me put this in my special project folder, aka my dumpster. And like, we're not going to implement that. Like, but it's so easy. It could be a week and it would save all this money. It's like, don't care. So a lot of that kind of stuff. I got kind of demoralized from there. But I want to bring up how something Bronze mentioned earlier is I got fired from a job. And I think that was one of the most like amazing opportunities in my life that made me like wake up out of everything. So at this time I was working for a company. It was in commercial real estate. And my boss at the time was getting ready to leave to do a different job, and they didn't really know what to do with me. And I was kind of underperforming because I'm new and I'd never done accounting or real estate work. And so I'm just like barely like staying afloat with this stuff. And it's just like, we need to part ways. And that's when I realized like I needed to look back and be like, yeah, this was not a good fit for me. What do I like? Right? What would be the job that I want? And this whole time this is going on, I'm like looking at Roll20, being like, I think if I could do this job and help Roll20 succeed, that would be amazing. And it really, so I was looking around, and this time I got fired. I had unemployment. And so I was on that, and it was literally through luck, right? So opportunities and luck. I was hungry. I was looking at other opportunities than just Roll20. However, just kind of out of the blue, Roll20 was like, hey, I think we might have something for you. Knowing that you're super interested and been around and been here for a while. So like, I can't explain it other than like, it is pure luck when it comes down to it. But the readiness to recognize opportunities and capitalize on them, and being able to be like, nope, this is the time I make the move. That I can't stress enough how that like plays in with luck, is just being able to see the opportunities and knowing when to take them.
And put yourself out there.
Yes.
Yeah.
people can't give you a job if they don't know that you want it or that you're not happy or that you're hungry for it. And I think that that's something that I grappled with up until like very recently. And now I'm not afraid to say that. Like now I'm not afraid to shake somebody's hand and be like, oh, this was great. You know, if you're ever looking for somebody, I love doing this kind of work, you know, like saying that because sometimes people don't know.
Yep. And that was the part I was gonna not necessarily correct. That's too strong of a word, but like on your behalf, interject. Like you also create your own luck to a certain degree. So like you are lucky, and it's cool that you have that mentality, and you were in the position at the right time at the right place to get this job. So that's where the luck comes in. But also, you alerted them to your presence. You made it clear that you have a skill set that they could use.
Exactly.
And you worked at it. You told them, hey, I'm available and I want to do this. And then they were like, yeah, I think we can actually make that happen. So that's exactly what Bron just said too. Like, because that's, I mean, this applies to so much, right? Like relationships too. Like a lot of times people have a crush on someone, but they're just like gonna float and be pleasant around them and be like, maybe they'll see me someday. And then they don't, and they go off with someone else. They're like, and now I'm gonna kill myself. And it's like, well, had you have, created your own luck and been like, you're awesome, I think you're really cool, and I'd like to spend more time with you. And they're like, I'm not in the right place right now. You're like, okay, that's fine, but if you ever are, let me know. Or I'll ask again. And then all of a sudden the opportunity presents itself. I was like, wow, how did that even happen? I just got so lucky. He's like, yeah, you got lucky, but also you told him. You made him aware.
Exactly. There are things you can do that are in your control that increase the chances of it, right? It's like saying XCOM is like an RNG based game, but you can still do things to hedge and like, anything like that, right? There are things you can do to improve your position. You have to do everything you have control over, right?
Now you're speaking game theory, which is my like human litmus test is whenever people like in Texas Hold'em or dice based games, all this stuff where they're just like, it's pure luck. There's no skill in it at all. And I'm like, my eyes just go, all right.
No, that's not true at all.
No, it's not true at all. Of course.
Yeah, half of it is bluffing. And that's actually the case with like jobs too and interviews. It's not the most qualified. People got really upset when I talked about this one morning on my stream. So I'm going to like hope that this doesn't start a dumpster fire, but I was saying that your grades in college will never matter as much as the people you met and the kind of impressions you had on them.
That's
people were angry
unequivocally
with
true
me when I said that. And the most qualified person for the promotion does not always get the promotion. It's the person who makes it clear that they want it. You know?
Yeah. The world is not a meritocracy. 100%. Stop. It's not. It's not at all. It's almost entirely who you know. Like you can position yourself and have some skills to be like, hey, I'm marketable in this way. But really, it's the person on the other side being like, I want my friend working with me. Like that's literally what privilege is. It's literally connections, right?
Yeah, and I've been on the side of it where I was passed over for a promotion, and I mentioned it to my superior, and she legit, I'm not. She was not shitting me. She was like, "Well, we just kind of thought you were just doing this job as like a part-time thing, and we didn't even realize you wanted to advance." And I'm like, "Well, who doesn't want more money and more hours, you know?" And they had no idea. They're just like, well, we weren't sure you were up for it, and like, I was like, but I do a great job. And they're like, yeah, no, we 100% would have promoted you. If something opens up, we 100% will promote you. We weren't sure that you wanted to commit to this like that. Like, we just thought that you were happy with where you were at. And I was just like, who would ever be happy with where they're at? Right. A lot of people. You'd be surprised.
And
a lot of people.
And going back to like what Jeff just said right there, Bronze, is exactly. It's like the company would have missed out on you being super active and like eager to be a good worker and like do something full time, right? And you would have missed out on having a fun job, like all because they made the assumption. They're like, oh well, they don't really seem interested.
It's my fault too because I got hired for a part-time job and I never expressed to them that I wanted a full-time job. That's my fault. It was such a huge light bulb moment for me.
Yep.
Instead of being angry that, oh, wow, they passed me over for this, I was just like, well, yeah, no, this is my fault. They hired me at part-time. They knew I was part-time. How are they supposed to know I want a full-time job if I don't tell them? For all they know, I have kids and I only want to work 20 hours a week. How are they supposed to know I want to work 40 unless I tell them that I do?
One of the coolest life hacks I ever heard was my person I know's mother. And they had their daughter go to school, and they said, go to every teacher you go to, as long as this is true. And on the first day of school, go up to them and say, my name is so-and-so, and I plan on getting an A in your class. So I'm going to do everything I can to make that possible. it just establishes that that's kind of who you are. The same is true for like a workplace. If you want to be that person, if you're this tryhard, and it's okay if you are, that like mantra is incredible, man. If you go to a job and you're like, hey, my name's so and so, I'm going to do everything I can because I'm not going to just be an entry level person here. I'm going to work my way up. I want to be a boss someday. Please recognize that I'm going to do everything I can to do that. Or in a relationship, you're like, this is what I expect out of this. This is what I want. If that's cool with you, let's work together and make each other happy, and let's be awesome people. Just like stating literally what you want and declaring that is such an incredible thing in so many places, because we could do a whole 70 episode extravaganza on assumptions we make about people all the damn time.
Oh my God,
Bronze,
that's a great topic.
She
That's such a good topic.
It is. I used to like roll my eyes because my mom used to say that to me. But in my defense, she used to say it in a really hippie-ish way. She used to, because my mom is a little bit of like one of those like hippie people. Those, you know what I'm talking about? One of those girls. Yeah. But she would always be like, Jasmine, you have to put that energy into the universe, or the universe won't give you.
It's true though, right? Yeah, I know what you're saying.
She used to say that. She'd be like, the universe can't give you if it doesn't know what you want. You got to put that out there. And I'd be like, oh my God, I love you.
You break it down. It's right.
But why do you have these conversations with me? But to a certain extent, she's right. If you put it out there, this is something I want to do.
Oh yeah.
Then people will think of you when they're promoting or when they're hiring. Like, let's say I go and open up a company tomorrow and we need an actuary, because I know Eric and because I know he's interested in that type of work and maybe he's looking for something better, I would hire him, right? But if I don't know that because he never put that out there, how would I ever know to hire him? Yeah. Like, so to a certain extent, my mom's bogus advice was actually really good advice.
It was very good advice. Yeah. It's just said the way, like you said.
Oh yeah,
the packaging is garbage.
Being able to say with like certainty what it is you actually want, especially from another person who can maybe help you there, like that's how you get help. Like, oh, it is so magical. It is truly, truly magical. But then there are times though where it doesn't work as well, or someone doesn't feel as receptive to that. For example,
you got to read the room, like Bron said in the earlier episode.
Yeah, sometimes a company is going to be like, "Hey, thanks a lot," and be like, "But I'm a really, really good fit for this job." It's like, thanks. And you're like, "But I know 52 languages." Yeah, I know.
That's kind of the power of this too, though. I like that, right? Like if you declare that, and you're not lying, you're not bullshitting, and their response is, "This is all we're gonna, you're a seasonal. We're gonna fire you in 4 months." Like or they're like, "No, we're not looking for anything more." Now you've said something that reveals that perhaps that is your greater truth, that like where you're at isn't going to provide for you the opportunity that you want. Obviously, that doesn't work in school. If you go to your teacher, say, I'm going to get an A, and they're like, well, I don't like boys, so you're going to get a B. And you're like, shit. Well, I guess I'm getting a B because there's not much you can do about that. But I just
being able to take the L like that gracefully though is like, oh, that is.
And sometimes it can help you cut your losses. Like if you're putting in a lot of work at your job, hoping to get this position, and then you find out that, your boss has already groomed somebody for that position. You are literally dumping energy into the fucking garbage, right? And it's the same thing with relationships, because I like how you connected that to relationships, Jeff.
Yep.
If you are like, I'm really going to work on it with, I got a great job opportunity in Europe, I'm going to pass it up because I really love Becky. She's the one for me. I don't know why I chose that name. And then Becky's like, I don't know, I'm not like really that serious about this. Then it's like, God damn you, Becky, you ruined my fucking life. But if you had said that, if you had been like, yo, Becky, we just smashing? Are we going to get married? And Becky's like, oh my God, I don't think of you that way. It's like, fuck you, Becky, I'm going to Europe. Like you can make better choices because you put the energy out there. And Becky was like, nah, fam. And then it's not even an L. Then it's like, good, now I can make an informed decision.
Well, this is wisdom being passed down, because this is something I went my whole life not knowing, and then in the last few years, like the other part too is it's harder than it sounds, right? It's like just declare what you want and be very open about that. For a lot of people, that's confrontation on some level. It's very difficult. So that's why for years and years, I too would like wander in and out of relationships or jobs or whatever, just being like, if I just put in the work and I'm just a good guy, I'm sure things will work out, and hopefully it will. But sometimes you can take the reins of your own destiny a little bit and direct you and create your luck, as we're saying, by being like, this is what I want, this is what I'm going to do it. And sometimes they'll be like, that's amazing, and I love that you're doing that, and let's go.
It's
and other
hard
times they'll be like,
because
well,
it also requires some vulnerability, like saying something like, I would like
lots
to
of
be
vulnerability.
romanced. This is a long-term relationship, and I feel like the romance is gone. I would like to be wined and dined. Sometimes it's embarrassing, and it's like it's a very vulnerable part of you. And maybe it took you 4 months to even get to that realization of, why am I miserable? It's scary, but
Very
it's
scary.
also beneficial because, and no matter the outcome, even if the outcome is, well, that's just not who I am, or I just don't feel that way about you, or that's not who we are. Or it's, let me try to work towards that. You're going to be better off for it. So there isn't really, sorry to contradict you there, Eric, but I don't feel like there is an L in that situation.
Oh, wow. Well, this is now it's a job. You're doing that thing where they're like, what's your greatest weaknesses? And you're like, I have only strengths.
No. That's totally fair. Yeah. But the idea is the same in relationships and in professional life, that they are partnerships. You are partnering with the company or another person and being like, we want to mutually benefit from this. Mm-hmm. And if you're not getting a benefit from it, then the other thing isn't a partnership. That's like a leech or like a vampire on you.
Well,
and
so I agree.
Like a parasite.
We're getting into, I love this. I love how, and we just need to have more episodes on relationship because I think it's so amazing to explore. But like, sometimes the benefit isn't what you think it is. And when you're more honest with that, because sometimes a person is literally like, the benefit I'm getting out of this relationship is that my ego is being sated, and I believe that I'm worth being desired again. But if their partner knows that and they're like, what? That's what you get out of this? They're like, I'm not here to make you feel better about yourself for the short term. So that's what, like, the weird part, right, is you can confront the actual thing that you're looking for. And that's why this advice, I think, is so sticky and so good, is it's work, it's relationships, and not just like romantic relationships, literally all of them, right? Like, how many times have we had a friend where like, hey, I need your help, and they're like, yeah, that weekend I'm gone, and you're like, I don't have a place to stay, I got kicked out, I'm in trouble, and they're like, yeah. If you would have been more open, like if you would have had the opportunity to be like, yo man, you're one of my best friends, like I feel like I've got your back and you got mine, and you can tell me that's not the case, but I want to count on you. And if that friend's like, you can't count on me, man, I'm sorry, I'm in a bad spot right now. Power to that person. That's fucking honest too. And it is hard to communicate that way, right? It's really hard to communicate that way because sometimes you do uncover that truth that neither of you wanted to talk about, or you get lied to. That's the other untold here, is that, like Eric was kind of insinuating with business. You could be like, I'm going to be your manager in a year. I'm going to move up 3 pay scales, and that's what I want. And they're like, good for you. That's awesome. You can totally do that. And then in 6 months, they're like, no, we had no plans for that. You're an idiot. And you're like, oh.
Exactly. That's the trap I see too often.
And it can't happen. There's no guarantee, by the way. So like, this kind of goes, I love that sometimes, and this is what StarCraft has really taught me throughout my life, is like sometimes you actually made the best call and it still didn't work out, and you need to be okay with that. That's a huge life thing. Like, it's not that you fucked up, it's that you did what you could and still the big wheel in the sky turned, and it just determined that that's not going to work. And hopefully you can recover and bounce back, because that's also life. This episode's getting ridiculous, but I mean, I guess we're talking about career, so that's where it happens. But like, you could do the best thing you could possibly do, and it can end up with you losing an arm or worse. Like, it can be the worst thing ever. And I guess I use the phrase, you have to be okay with that. That's not entirely true either. I guess it's more just that, like, you have to still make these choices. You still have to do the best you can, knowing that it might not work out. Yeah. And I hear a lot of that too in my mind when Bronze was talking about, like, earlier in the show, when she's saying, like, when I do my stream, if people don't tune in, if I'm they're not watching my content, or someone's watching some shit other thing, do the best you can anyways. What the fuck? Yeah. You can't control the viewership. I could start every episode with the title that this is the one where Barristan walks in bipedal and starts speaking to me in English, and maybe thousands of people tune in, but it won't happen, right? Or maybe they don't, or maybe he actually does do that and no one's watching. Then that's even weirder. I'm off the rails in my example, but the point is, like, you still just have to do the best you can. So, Bronze, how are you on time?
You have to accept that, like, I'm good.
You're good?
I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah. If we want to go longer, we can go longer.
Okay.
I think that also feeds into another thing with careers, which is this is hard for me to say because I think if you talk to like 18-year-old Bronze about this, she would have slapped you across the face if you told her that like, oh well, you know what? 11 years from now, you're going to accept that people less talented than you and less smart than you are going to get higher than you. But that accepting that was one of the best things I ever did for myself because if you see somebody that is less talented than you at any job or like, less intelligent than you or doesn't work as hard as you and they're in a position you want to be in, just by observing how they got there, you can maneuver better. And one of the things I realized is like a lot of the people that to me were just like, oh, how'd this person get here? They asked for things I wouldn't ask for.
Mm-hmm.
Like they would work with like, and it even happens with like content creators where I'm like, oh man, I would really like to work with this person, but they're a lot bigger streamer than me. And then I see them working with somebody who has like 12 viewers. And I'm like, I didn't ask. I didn't have that.
Yeah.
That it's the same thing with like, a study came out that said that a big part of the reason why women make less money than men is because women do not apply for jobs that they're not qualified for. If they don't meet every qualification on the list, they don't apply, but men do. And so like observing some of the very brash, bold, outspoken, just really loud people in my life that I'm like, God, this person's a fucking moron. Nobody likes them. How is he getting all this stuff? Right. But then noticing like how he puts himself out there, I was like, I need to do that. Like he might be like, if he gets that much and he's like a fucking idiot just by putting himself out there, imagine how much somebody like me could get by putting myself out there, by being like, by letting people know that I am willing to work with them or that I want to work with more people and that I'm accessible and that reaching out to people and all of that stuff. That's so important. And when I was younger, nope. When I was younger, if I saw like a manager in my department who was an idiot, he doesn't deserve that job. He shouldn't be there. I should have that job. Instead of like standing back and being like, how the fuck did this idiot get that job? Which is now what I do. You have to give credit where credit's due. If you see a moron making more money than you where you want to be, you need to look at that person and be like, how'd they do it? And like try to do the math on that to try to jack that and do it for yourself because it's invaluable.
Yeah.
Communication and emotional intelligence are like the most valuable skills you can have, bar none, for any job. And so being able to clearly communicate what you want and like seeing those things and being able to ask for what you want. Oh my God. Yeah. Like it just seems like when other people who just seem like they are way less intelligent or literally just like they are awful people, what are they doing in positions of power here when it's a fact of life. And yeah, being able to just handle that, being like, this is the reality. Okay, don't get mad. And just dealing around it. Yeah, and learning from how they got there. It will make all the difference.
We're talking about people that go for assholes too. Like everything's related. I think of James Spader in The Office talking about everything actually is just about sex. Because I'm thinking, like, as you guys are talking about this, I'm like, everyone always talks about, like that asshole guy that gets the most sweet and amazing girls. And it's like, it's because they're willing to apply for what they're not qualified for and then ask for it. But a life lesson that I learned that's hugely important to me, and I have to, not to be that cliche, but I am, I attribute to my football coach in high school. One of the things he impressed on us so incredibly well was it doesn't necessarily, like, getting stuff and winning is very important and that's cool, but how you do it is actually more important. So one of the most applicable life examples to me, and I was just talking about this the other day, but like if you give someone the wrong food, like they order food and they didn't, it's not what they ordered, they didn't like it. When that person yells and chews out the server who had nothing to do with it, they very often are reimbursed. They're apologized to. They're given free food. They're given special treatment. If you come to me with the wrong food, I'll be like, oh, that's not what I ordered. And they'll be like, oh, I'm so sorry. Can I go get you, give me a minute. I'll get the right thing. I'll be like, sure. Are they going to then also comp me the food, give me free stuff? Maybe, if they're really, really nice. But more often than not, no. They see someone being reasonable and they're just like, I'm not going to give them the extra because this seems diffused. The situation's okay. And again, there are examples, of course, on both sides where it's wrong, but go with me on this. For the majority of the time, the squeakiest wheel gets the grease. Like the people that complain and throw a tantrum get more. The people that are reasonable and calm kind of don't. But what's important to me is not to get stuff out of that situation, but I don't want to ever be the kind of person that fucking flips out and is terrible to the server, and then at the end of the day I got a free pizza out of it, because that's not the person
I don't
that I
know.
want to be.
So I don't necessarily disagree with you there.
Okay.
However, what's going on in that situation is that you are burning, if you make a big complaint like that, you are burning up all of this future potential for immediate short-term like gratification. Because the next time you go to the restaurant, they're like, fuck that person.
I still think I agree with you. The example applies though. So the person that gets that job that they're out of position for, they probably end up getting fired. They probably have people that don't like them. They probably underperform. But they still got to that position. They still got further than you did by being kind and nice. In this, weird example we're using, I guess. I'm not saying that the world works out for them and that's the better way to go. What I'm saying is, for me, anyways, what's really important is to find a merger. Like I'm an ambitious, aggressive person that wants to do well in life and in everything that I do. But it's so important to me that how I got there. Another example is the content I produce with Matt.
I agree.
And the people I work with, like, I could probably get more out of these guys if I scared them and I yelled at them and I was like a dick or something like that. But at the end of the day, at the first opportunity, they'd be like, well, fuck that guy, I'm out of here. Or they'd cut corners on something, or it just wouldn't be the same. Whereas if I create an atmosphere, which is what I try to do, of like, we're all in on this. You own some of it. I own some of it. We're proud of each other and working hard. I feel like that inspires a better performance and that creates a better product. And that's what I found to be true in my life in general as well with the people I work with. Like, when I'm a lot of my jokes and comedy on camera is more meant to be self-deprecating or like open up the opportunity for them to dish it back at me, and then that creates a funny opportunity for them, as opposed to just like, look at me, the light's on me, I'm dominating conversation, I'm yelling, which does still happen sometimes, unfortunately, but I try and create situations for other people.
I think like what I was trying to say a little bit to give more insight into that is that I think like when I was younger, I felt like those people had no redeeming qualities. And now I've realized you can learn something from everyone. Because a lot of times when you have like somebody in chat was like, oh, sometimes the person in charge he knew Chad, the VP or whatever. But maybe it was that he checked the right job board and applied before anybody else applied to the job and stuff like that. And it's because like when I was in college, my mom gave me this book that was, once again, my mom's a hippie, and it was called like The Art of Worldly Wisdom. But there was one line in it.
I love your mom already.
That I actually just like took to heart. And it was, mediocrity obtains more with application than superiority without it.
Jesus.
And I was like, oh, that's me. This is peak Jasmine. I just remember thinking like, oh, like I'm superiority and I don't know how to like apply. And that's why mediocrity is always shitting all over my life. I remember having this like 19-year-old like breakdown and then realizing like, it is so important to just like, there will be less talented, less hardworking people than you that will get opportunities because they told people they wanted the job, or they made it clear like, oh man, I'd really love to have a show at Geek It Sundry, or oh, I would really love to host one day. Like how many people do you think, Jeff, in your field have told you like, oh, I'd love to host like you do, but they've never like really put that energy or that never talked to the right people or taken the first steps, right?
Oh yeah. So much of this, it reminds me so much of like Dunning-Kruger a lot, like the idea that you tend to, like, especially if you're fairly competent at what you do, you tend to underestimate because you have a good idea that that you don't know a lot about your field or your experience, right? Like you know that while everyone else who doesn't know anything is like, yeah, I can do that. That's great, right? And like, so, when you see that job application and it requires like 3 years experience in this one thing, you're like, I mean, I kind of have 2 years, I guess. They don't really need me, even though maybe you're like an award winner or like you really like that part of the job. Right. And you're like, but that's not for me. Screw that. Put that thought in the dumpster, apply, communicate with like, what I like to do when I started out is like have a way better rapport with my boss and like be very upfront with that. So I said things like, listen, when you brought me on board. I don't know Ruby, the programming language. I've worked with other languages before. It's definitely going to be like a hard part for me, but I'm going to communicate you with statuses and let you know if it's like just really slipping or anything like that. And just being able to like say like, hey, I want to like foster this good communication relationship. I'll let you know when things are wrong. And like most of the time, if you're not as in like, if you get a job and you feel like imposter syndrome, or you feel like you're not as proficient as what they need you to be, just being able to communicate, being like, listen, I'm doing these things, just communication, and being like, I'm doing this, have check-ins or something like that. Like there's some different things you can do, but just being able to talk to your boss or your person, your coworkers that are in this project, right? Your teammates, to be like, listen, this is my deficiency here. Like I'm gonna do my best for this part, and everyone, because no one has no problem with that. Everyone's like, yeah, I get it. Like that's fine. This one, cool. You don't know how to do macros in Excel. Cool, that's fine.
Yeah.
I can do that part. You do this other thing, right? It's just group dynamics and being able to say you're good or bad, and yeah.
Yes and no. The kind of funny thing to interject here, and this is like maybe I agree with the advice in general, but what I would, I guess, try to interject there is that sometimes that honesty and how you did that is not the right call. Sometimes, because I look at some of my family examples, like my mom got fired from a lot of jobs. She, without getting too into it, she went to school to be an artist. Artist, as we all know, is not a job that you make money off of, but she was a mother. My parents went through a divorce, and then she found herself needing to earn money all of a sudden. Art degree doesn't do anything, so she just took these really random jobs. And a lot of them, she's too honest. She's like, well, I don't know how to do that, and I'm kind of an old woman. And they're like, well, then you're fired. And then she's like, oh. Whereas if she faked it or whatever, if she did some other shit, then she would have kept the job. But for her, being honest and open and sharing that, like Eric's talking about and I talked about earlier, if that does end up being what gets you fired or whatever, maybe it was the better call, because down the road something more nasty was going to happen, or holding a job that you can't do very well is stress inducing and creates anxiety that you can melt from.
Can I back up a little bit and explain my process a little bit where I came from that? No,
I said I'll allow you. Go for
those
it.
words. Okay. To give you a little story here, Google spent a bunch of money, a Google amount of money, on figuring out where the best like employees are, and that for like most bang for your buck. What schools are they going to? What type of person they are, and for hiring processes, improving their hiring processes. The number one thing, their takeaway after spending all this money, is that the person who's able to admit they don't know something, but be able to work out how to get the answer, is the best way. So like if you're hiding, like if the best way to get what you want is to hide that you don't know something, but so like if you're really good at Googling, you're probably going to be pretty set at most jobs. Being able to learn on the fly and ask questions is like the number one thing that Google figured out, is that your thought process matters. The how you do it, that your football coach, the how you do it, how you learn on the job is the most important part than what you actually come equipped with.
Yep.
Being able to adapt on the fly is the most integral, like number one thing people want.
Yep.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I've lied. I've like, oh, do you know QuickBooks? Yes.
Yeah.
There.
And then I go home from the interview and I'm like, all right, time to learn QuickBooks.
Yep. You go to Google and there's that one dude with the fucking 1994 headset talking with the capture of the desktop, being like, hello, hi, thank you to the conference. We're going to go over QuickBooks 96.
Yep.
And you're like, oh, lay it on me.
Yeah.
Let's
because
go.
I know I can teach myself. Because the thing is, I never have faith in other people. Like, I know that I'm smart. I know that I'm a hard worker. And I know that I will fucking pick that shit up.
Yeah.
But if I tell my employer, yeah, no, I got this, they're never going to believe that. So they're like, oh, are you well versed in this? Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
I use it. I use it at my last job, even if it just sat as an icon on your desk. Yeah, I use that at my last job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You can always just say this version's different. Trust me. If someone's watching you, that's just say this one. I don't know. I use a different version. But like I have to Google how to do this. But that's fine.
I've even outsourced my work before.
As an Indian woman, I can't believe
I
it.
know. I've legit like been like, oh, I told this person that I knew like SQL or whatever. I forgot what it was. It was something to do with like databases.
Yeah.
And I legit like paid somebody off of Craigslist like $100 to do it.
Yeah, that's good. It's resourceful.
I needed the paycheck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I outsourced it.
You got the job done,
There's only
man.
one part of the project I had to submit, so
worked out. Well, this was a really, really good talk. I once again, gazing mentally back on this, I love that there is no clear answer. It's just a bunch of conversation, and I hope some pseudo resolutions, but some sound advice. I know that part for sure shined through. And it's at this time too that I just want to once again thank our listening audience. Like, the feedback on the show is absolutely incredible. It's not crushing it super hard in numbers, but the people that listen and watch, which are everywhere, like I get people, like I said, they're coming from like Warhammer and stuff and different parts of my life, and they're like, hey, I listen to every one of your episodes. I love the conversation. So it's just, I know that what we're talking about is meaningful and helping people. And one of my favorite parts, I guess I probably should have like even talked about this at the beginning of the show, but like one of the best things I ever learned from competitive parliamentary debate was the marketplace of ideas is one of the most valuable like concepts you can ever possibly have. You can not agree with Bronze Girl. You can think Eric is talking out of his ass, and you could just straight up resent some of the things I say. But if you bounce your ideas off of that and you confer and challenge the notions that you have and think about it, then son of a bitch, we made you a better person today, or we helped make you a better person today, and I am totally okay with that. Do not go into our shows and agree with everything. Don't take it. That was actually one of the cool conversations I just had with the guy that I do another show with. Shout out to PewDiePab in the Warhammer world. Puts on a great podcast called Chapter Tactics. But he was talking about how his mental process for a lot of what you and I were describing, he was like, oh my God, I don't think that way at all about some of the things they were saying. So then he was like, am I completely wrong? And am I an asshole and doing this really bad? And all I kind of simply said to him is like, maybe, maybe not. Like, the fact that you're thinking about it and working through it is actually, to me, one of the highest places of a human you can find. And I try to surround myself with people. Whenever I'm around people that are like, no, I know exactly the answer. And you're like, well, what about this? And I'm like, no, don't be an idiot. I'm 36 years old. I've been around for a while. And you're like, I'm gonna push my chair back until you're gone now, and you like disappear. Because those people cause problems, man.
If you're really good at it, you can get a job doing this for companies. That's what I do.
Yeah.
I'm a business analyst. It's really, as companies are like, is this the best way of doing this?
Oh,
I think it's also like
yeah.
Sometimes when defending, or not even defending, because it's not always defending, when debating with someone, I've had like a really strong emotional reaction to something they said.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned something about myself from that. And that's another very strong concept of the marketplace of ideas. And like that happened this morning where I caught myself getting angry because we were talking about like communication or something like that. Eric, you were there. And somebody said that like, oh, but like only you are responsible for your emotions. And I had to catch myself because I'm like, that's some shit that like sociopaths say. Like, oh, like, like, oh, if somebody does something that upsets you, like you're responsible for your emotions.
Right.
And I'm like, not if you're in like a relationship or you're friends with this person. Like, yeah, sure. If there's things on the internet that are upsetting you, like, yeah, that's different. Right. But like,
I think
if you're talking about a relationship where somebody does something that you find upsetting or disrespectful and you convey that to them and they say, like, if I'm like, hey, Jeff, when you said I was lazy, that really hurt my feelings. And you're like, well, that's not how I meant it. And you're responsible for your emotions. To me, I'd be like, well, Jeff is a cunt. That would literally be my takeaway from that situation.
And it's funny because in the chat that's coming up here too, I think when people say that, they're specifically, and I feel like someone very intelligent and famous said that a while ago, but they're constantly cut off from the entire saying. It's not trying to communicate that you are completely in control of your emotions and nobody else can influence that. I believe, and God damn this world if it's not true, I believe the saying is trying to communicate you are responsible for how you handle your emotions.
Yes, 100%.
You can feel, someone can make you feel terrible, and that saying's not trying to be like, you allowed them to make you feel terrible. No. But how you handle that and what you do with that is your power. And I do think that's true.
Yeah. If Jeff says a remark to me that I take poorly, I can't control that hurt my feelings. Right. I can control that. Oh, well, I was upset, so I slashed the tires of his car. Or, I was upset, so I like stole Barristan and ran away to a third world country. Like, I can control my reaction to that. But to try to say that, like, oh, I'm not going to allow myself to feel sad because I won't let people have power over me. If you never let anybody close enough to you to hurt you, you never let anybody close enough to you to love you.
Yep.
And that's just sad.
Yep.
Generally speaking, yeah. I mean, there could be people out there that's how they want to live, and if you feel good about that, great. I know for me personally, I'm at my happiest and I feel my best when I've got partners. When I've got someone that I'm sharing my life with. So I'm engineered that way, and it's awesome. Well, hey, this is a great show, and like I said, went off on a bit of a tangent there, but just thank you everyone for the feedback. The comments have always been great too. Been reading that. We'll keep doing it. Bronze says she likes it. I love it. We have Eric. This is awesome. We have really cool, smart friends we want to bring on, and then Britt, who we want to see if we can find a subject who she'll actually disagree with us on. That is our white whale that one day we'll try to tackle. I theorize she'll agree with us on everything, and I want to sneak one in there that she can't agree with, and I'll see if she'll still do it. We'll see. We're going to sign off. That was episode 7. Thank you guys so much. Eric, I want you to please talk about the stuff you're doing. There's your Twitter. It's right there on the screen. Please follow him if you're listening to this on the podcast or YouTube. It'll be in the notes or somewhere around there. But he's a great guy. If you like this conversation, one of the reasons I like Eric so much is he's real on Twitter. He's real in Twitch chats. He's bringing deep, good conversation to all the content that he's around, and he's just good people. So, Eric, what are you up to?
Oh, thank you, Jeff. So I'm Eric. I'm Eric Vulgaris everywhere. Definitely follow me up on Twitter if you like interesting conversations about game design. If you like or want to learn more about, I try to explain a lot about where like privilege and like social justice stuff comes from a lot. It's important to me, and it's important for me as a white dude to kind of explain that part so other people who are less marginalized, they shouldn't be doing that work. That falls on me. And trying to, just make the world a little bit better place, talk a little bit more, practice what I preach. So do that. And in video games. I mean, if you don't find me here, I'm probably in either Jeff or Bronze's chat. You guys have good streams.
We try.
Yeah.
Bronze. No, go ahead.
Real quick. You two are probably the best. You have the best tirades. Like,
oh yeah.
Like the way you
hers
guys
are actually angrier than mine, which I've been told by a lot of people. And I was like, damn.
Yep.
Fire and brimstone over there in that Bronze
brutal
channel.
It's amazing.
I'm like, sometimes Cobra's made a couple. It's on the YouTube as well. There's like sometimes because I don't know. Sometimes someone says something so stupid that I go in pretty hard on them. He made a couple of like highlights of me making fun of someone for saying justifiably very stupid things. But I watched it again and I was like, oh, I went a little too hard on that. I need to dial it back a little bit. I did like a 5-minute speech about a dumb zoo for a while and how they were like a dumb exhibit at the dumb zoo. It was good, but it was mean.
I said that people who use the words best girl and waifu should be executed by a firing squad yesterday.
Yeah, you probably taking it pretty far.
Well, in Bronze's defense, she walked it back to they should have the choice of how they're executed.
Oh, that's nice. There you go. Best, what is it you said? I know waifu. What was the other one?
You know what people say, like, oh, blah, 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 it's best girl. Somebody said that in my chat. Someone's like, the Hatsune Miku is best girl. I was like, they need to bring back firing squads for you fuckers.
Dude.
Ace Attorney.
We could do a whole episode if we want. We could take all this positivity we've been garnering up and just like eject it the opposite direction. Because I have the silliest pet peeves in the whole world. And I've learned that it's just me. So I keep them quiet now because every time I'm like, does it bother you that person's chewing with their mouth open? And I want to strangle the life out of them. And they're like, dude, you're weird. And I'm like, oh, okay. Me then. Anyways, Bronze, what are you up to?
Lip just calling me out, which is like, and then she said it'd be a waste of bullets because I did.
God.
I'm the opposite of Eric. Hi, I'm that Bronze girl. I spew toxicity and negativity on the internet. I don't know. I'm a pretty interesting person, I think. Sometimes I forget the impact of my words. That's probably my greatest flaw. If this is a job interview, my greatest strength is my relentless work ethic and my passion for the things that I do. You can follow me on Twitter at that bronze girl and on Twitch at that bronze girl.
Nice. There is no coming back from that, is it? Where you wanted people executed for using the word waifu. I think it's important that we keep Bronze close to our channel so that we can make sure she's not out there executing people.
You wasted bullets, so it's fine.
Oh my god. All right. So for me, guys, thank you so much. Like I said, the feedback's been really, really awesome. We just love this content a lot. So if more people watch it, cool. Make sure and support the people that go into this. Like we do it on my channel, but it's really important to me that you guys check out Bronze if you like this conversation. If you think she could be entertaining, please head over there as well. I know a lot of people are from that channel. It's wonderful as well. If you're listening to this on YouTube or SoundCloud, we stream on Twitch. She's that bronze girl. Eric, you are streaming, right? You're doing a show. Is it on your channel?
Yeah. Eric Vulgaris.
Eric
Tonight.
Vulgaris.
Yeah. 8:00.
There you go. I'll try.
Your ultraviolet.
Yeah, Ultraviolet Grasslands, which is the psychedelic. If you like Mobius art and heavy metal, this is the game.
And who doesn't? Who does not? But the show lives on my YouTube, so that's In Control TV. Make sure and turn on notifications there. We've got a lot of content going up. For instance, we'll be streaming some casual Warhammer game night tonight. Just a bunch of friends hanging out, rolling some dice, playing the game. But we also do the Pylon show, which goes to another channel, but some stuff's there. And then this. And then Mr. Cobra Venom, who got a lot of love this episode, deservedly so, makes this a podcast as well. So it's going to be on soundcloud.com/TheDeadpanDiaries, all one word. You can check it out there. There's a lot of people that consume this content via that. And if you do, please make sure and, click those follow buttons and subscribes and support it that way. And if you like the content, consider subscribing to the channel. That's one of the ways that we know that the content is living and breathing and doing stuff. But I'll tell you what, we enjoy it so much that even if you don't subscribe, tough luck, motherfucker. We're still going to make it probably until I literally need to sell my body to earn a living or something like that. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Or sell Barrison's body. He's laying down. You guys, I tried to show it on the camera. He's laying next to his mannequin. That's him.
Oh my god, I see it now.
Yeah. I'm worried that one day I'll come in and he's like pumping it or something like that, but hasn't happened yet. If I'm the first guy to have my dog have like a mental break and it doesn't know what's real or not, it's kind of cool, right? It's also weird, but it happens on stream, so people can't accuse me of. Anyways, that's it. I think that's the most rambling part we got. We're gonna have Eric back on though, as much as we can get that guy. It's a great conversation. We'll see you guys later. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll be back next week. Bye bye.